The intention today is to discover the past life that is the most closely related to the life you are currently living, and to find out how you are still connected to that past life by what you are doing in this current life. Or is there something that you're maybe supposed to be doing? Choose the animal on the screen that calls to you, then go to the timestamp in the description box below to jump to your past life reading. Have fun with this, you guys. Hello, pile number 1. Those who chose the cute little puppy here. Give you a little closer look at him. Isn't he adorable? All right, so we're going to get started with your past life reading. We're going to take 6 cards and line them up across the back right away. I did shuffle before I started, but just kind of want to make sure that they are good and mixed. And always I like to cut the deck. Pretty much always. All right, so here we go. I'm going to line them up across the back here to start with. I feel as though you were some kind of a magic person. Someone who could feel energy and who worked with magic folk as well. And we see here this being here is using their hand to feel over the leaf in front, as though doing healing work, trying to give extra healing to the leaves in this picture. I feel as though that is something that you did for other people. People would come to you near on their deathbed, looking very sallow and feeling very, almost as though they were being eaten from the inside out, and had no idea where to go or what to do. And then they would hear about you and they would make the travels to see you. And you always made time. Always made time. Of course, there were those that were also quite afraid of you. They would sit kind of in the shadows or, hiding in the rock, and they would watch how you would work with the people who came to you before they could get their courage up to come and see you themselves, or to determine if they really were worthy to see you, because many of the people that you did see came to you very, very sick. And, if somebody was seemingly somewhat healthy or felt much better than how these people looked, then they weren't sure if you would take them or if there would be anything that you could do for them. As a healer, you were more than happy to help whoever came your way. And I feel as though you lived pretty secluded. They really had to make quite a trek to come and see you. And then sometimes I feel like it was almost by accident that they came across you. And of course, You know, we know there is no such thing as accident. And isn't it interesting, as we're doing this reading, the light is shining on this being in this card, as though you're shining, your past self is shining that light of healing on them. And this being here is watching what's happening. So, trying to determine the time period on the past lives. This is a little tough with the cards, but we'll do the best that we can here. I'm seeing somebody here they look as though they're wearing a suit and tie. And then we have someone who looks as though they are wearing almost like an astronaut suit. And then we have another who is pretty much just dressed whatever way they choose to dress without worrying about anything. So I'm thinking this is more modern times than medieval, as oftentimes these cards will show. Just because of the suit and the astronaut, and because, you know, nowadays we dress pretty much whatever way we choose to. It isn't as though we have to be in long dresses or wearing, you know, specific clothing, even as men, that was suitable for the era. So I'm going to guess in this case that we're somewhere in the 1950s, 1960s is when this past life perhaps took place. And of course, with all past lives, with all lives, there are challenges. And I feel as though you were taken before a judge more than once, because people can be very fickle, and if they didn't feel like they had the healing that they needed quickly enough, they would complain, and of course then you would have to go to a judge. Sometimes this was a fair and impartial judge as to the justice system, and sometimes this was more of a pirate type justice, where you were perhaps walk the plank kind of thinking. And then sometimes you were put in solitary confinement by certain groups, or even they would turn their back on you and you would not exist for them. That, I think, is one of the things that may have happened to you with your own people, which is what made you move into your own space, so to speak, out and about and away from everyone, so that it was a little bit difficult for people to find you. And so your challenges were basically, you cannot please everyone all the time. It's just not even possible. And a lot of times the judges didn't really take what you did seriously, and you didn't get much but a slap on the wrist from them. The more unorthodox ways of punishment, they were more severe in what they wished to serve out to you. They didn't really have laws that they went by specifically that would protect the person who was being charged. You really had to work hard to let them know that, you know, you're only doing good for people, and it wasn't an easy argument by any stretch. And I feel as though how you died. I believe you may have been drafted. Regardless of where you were, I believe that your time of peace, you had your time of peace, very much so, for, a good portion of your life. But then I believe you were drafted and had to go to war. And because of your reputation, perhaps, you carried a lot of burden. People came to you, and I think even the service people, I believe, even came to you because they wanted miracles. They needed miracles from you. Because if they were injured, they needed you to heal. And you had so many burdens on you, so many burdens. You were carrying so much weight on your shoulders. And I do believe that is what ultimately caused your death. You weren't very old, I don't think. You were probably in your 30s, maybe 40s. I don't even think that old. You could not carry all of the burden of the energetic sicknesses. That's what I'm trying to say. Everyone was broken inside. And, where you started out in this kind of, because of where you lived, you started out in a very peaceful state of mind when they drafted you. And you went from this to this. See how dark this is and how peaceful and beautiful this is. This was the energetic heaviness that you carried, and you had no way to rejuvenate yourself. Whereas, in this kind of a setting, in your place in solitude in the woods, you could recharge. Here in the war, you had no way of recharging. So you ended up passing. I don't know if they ever really determined. You weren't hurt. You just got very sick and passed. The energy was just too heavy and too dark for you to take. And of course, with all lives, there are lessons to be learned. And this life, of course, was no different. And I do believe that what you took away from your life, what you kind of viewed at your time of passing or while you were in spirit, was that you could create, you could become, you had powers that were connected to the earth. You could deal with the elements. You knew how to work with the elements, and you could change things into powerful things. However, at a cost. What began as this is a lovely, lovely life, you found that people were more than happy to take advantage, and they would strong arm if necessary. They would send in whoever they needed to strong arm you, to force you to do the healing, to try to heal. And I mean, even to the point of the old ways of threatening to burn you at the stake. And there were many threats that came with the lessons that you learn, knowing that people will do anything to get what they want, even at the cost of another's life. That was a very difficult lesson for you. And there's usually, in the situations of traumatic death, there's often carryover into the next life from that. And I feel that for the most part, I think you came to terms in spirit. You were aided, I think, in spirit by special, I'm going to call them shamans, special spirits who worked with you to try and clear all of this negative energy away from your body so that you could actually consider having another lifetime to live. You could not do much of anything when you went into spirit with all of this heaviness, all of this dark energy attached to you. So it was quite the long haul to bring peace back to you. And if you look, these two cards are very similar. I mean, obviously that one's greener, but we're in spirit here. But the same kind of peacefulness, the same kind of wisdom seems to shine from those cards. And I think you considered becoming female this time. And I think part of you before this, part of you felt as though you needed to live a life of darkness. Or maybe you feel now as a carryover that you aren't as, what do I want to say? You're not as pure as you feel you should be. And you know there's purity. You know, and we all have our vices. We all have our things we need to work on. And you certainly aren't as bad as you probably believe that you are. And it's belief systems that really create things. But you can be assured that you were worked on to bring out all that, or as much of that negativity as you could possibly have removed, all of that darkness. So whatever you feel as though you've carried with you, this kind of pirate type version. Can you see? She's got the pirate patch. And this kind of Snow White wicked queen. Maybe you feel as though you've carried this into your current life. But rest assured, whatever you're feeling with that, if you feel that very, very deeply and you believe that, perhaps some of your actions are to others are giving that impression. However, remember, you can call on the spiritual shamans to help cleanse you again. They're here for you. They're showing that they followed you into this lifetime. Your spirit team, your spiritual shamans, your angels. You just need to call on your spirit team to say, hey, I'm feeling like this. Could you come in and do a cleanse occasionally? I mean, you can even ask them to cleanse you weekly if need be, until you feel as though you are clean, until you feel as though you have nothing to be ashamed of, that you can just be who you are and be happy with the person that you are. So we're going to take the We Folk Oracles cards and get an extra message here for you. I think in general this was quite a good reading. You were a wonderful healer and many people looked up to you. You always have, of course, those who are jealous of what you can do, and, those who are not believers and, are very pious about things. And you have those who want instant gratification, which, where the challenges were concerned, those people who didn't believe or who thought you were doing more harm than good and felt you needed to be punished. But they were always very short-lived, because someone else would come along and say, we need that person because you were magical. And again, we still have the light showing on this one being who did come to you for healing. I'm going to split the deck here. Okay, so we have this being here. And this is Barrister. That's his name. And the Royal Guard is what his subject matter is. The Royal Guard depicts the conscious mind. Its job is to protect you and to make certain that you follow all rules and regulations that society imposes upon you. This Royal Guard has no patience for individual thought. It guards the entrance to your subconscious mind with a vengeance, as that is the vault that holds all that is possible. To enter, the Royal Guard must be diverted. Meditation, hypnosis, and writing, any of these will require the Royal Guard to step aside, giving you access to all the amazing secrets of your existence. So, Barrister is giving you another opportunity or another way in which to come to grips with anything that you feel is not working for you. If you are still holding on or have carried over or feel you have carried over dark energy with you despite the healing that you've received, he's saying that you can go into meditation. You can also, with the help obviously of your guides and your spirit team, help heal yourself. So we're going to go into the playing cards now, and we're going to determine what you came into this life wanting, or what the plan was for this lifetime. And then we're going to look at where you actually are. And then we're going to, if you're not where you want to be or where your plan was, then we're going to take a look at how to get there, how you can get there. Okay. Okay. So it looks like here that you wanted to be born into money. You wanted to be privileged. You wanted to have a good education. You didn't want to be, again, over here living off on your own in the woods. You wanted to know what it was like to live a privileged life. The problem is that because of the amount of money that you wish to have, you were going to have a lot of worry, a lot of struggle, and people were going to be quite negative with you. You had people who wanted to have you help them create puppets basically out of other people because of the amount of money that you had. There were gossip. The military wanted you to help fund. You had so much money, and this is what you came in with and what you wanted to clear up. Okay, you wanted to be wealthy, but there are things that you need to take care of before that wealth is a happy time. So if this is your life now and you came in wealthy and things seem to fall apart, okay, that's what this is about. It is also possible that you came into this money as a a teenager, that life before that was very, very difficult, very hard, a lot of worry, a lot of grief on your part, and you came into money in a younger age, by teens at least. And at that point, you were very, very privileged. And what started out as a very troubled, we'll say troubled purse, became something of the end result would be a good life, but not until you were older. So let's see where you actually are. This is your current, what's going on right now. So I'm seeing somebody who loves to work, keeps themselves extremely busy. You might be a boss, or at least high up the totem pole, so to speak. And whatever your job is, there's a lot of changes going on. And these changes, perhaps they are your doing. Okay, you are maybe making the rules, and you're the one who's deciding what other people are going to do, or do you or don't you want to stay in this job? You can easily leave it. There is nothing here that shows you're making a lot of money, but you are up there, or at least you should be. And the path, it's showing a very pleasant life right now. It isn't necessarily so wealthy, but you are definitely working toward that wealth. I feel like too, you might be younger than most bosses, or even if you're not a boss, people come to you with their problems because you're very, very logical minded, and it's easy for people to talk to you. You have a lot of different ideas as to what they can do to make changes in their life. You could be a counselor. If you're not, you could be. You can help people with, again, back to the healing. This might be a whole new way of helping people, and you just kind of fall into it naturally. So let's see how you can get to the wealthy portion, if that's where you really want to go. All right, so I'm seeing here that despite what you came in wanting to do, because of the troubled purse, regardless of the fact that you might have been given a lot of money, you might have gone to school for something that should have made you a lot of money, there's something there that you decided upon in your spiritual growth, in your decision as to what life you wanted to have, that you never really would be as wealthy as what you hoped. It would always be flanked by some kind of major challenge, something that would keep you from either using that money or getting access to that money. So again, this is, you buckled under and you decided to go ahead and go to work. Money is still a trouble. So money ends up not being what you necessarily came in for. They're being very cryptic here, but you didn't necessarily come in for the money after all. So to get happiness in this lifetime, it's showing that you do just that. And you do it by loving. You find yourself a very loving, very caring mate, and you begin doing things that you absolutely love to do, creative things, anything that offers you happiness. And, there are still money struggles. However, you have an amazing, amazing relationship. And this is somebody that you wish to grow old with, and that you have such a close relationship, perhaps even, and I hate to use the word soulmate, because friends can be soulmates, animals can be soulmates. So this person is probably part of your soul family. You've been together before, maybe over and over again, and you do find each other. If you haven't already, this person is waiting for you. And money is not the catalyst. Money is not the catalyst. You needed to learn, apparently, in this life that money isn't everything. That money, you were here, you didn't have a lot. I don't feel as though you were wealthy at all. I feel like people paid you in chickens and pies, and so you never wanted for food, and a lot of it you grew yourself anyway. So you lived very naturally. You had no need of money. So I feel as though maybe you felt as though when you came into this one that money would have changed all of this. If you had had money, people would have respected you more. So you came in with that idea, well, here is money, but on both sides there's a lot of struggle, a lot of struggle. And you may, again, have had money, when you were younger, but somehow or another that money really never made it to you, or you weren't allowed to have it until a certain age, and by that time maybe somebody used it. And it's hard to say where that comes from, but money will end up being not the most important thing in your life, and that is a wonderful thing to learn. It is love that is what your life should revolve around. It was love towards people that had you doing the healing and gave you the power that you had to have that healing power. It was love that kept you going as long as you did during that war. Just love for helping people until you could no longer sustain. You could no longer take care of yourself. So in this lifetime, you're going to be given the opportunity to love in a very huge way and have someone love you as strongly in return. A very healthy love. And you will have money. You just may have troubles with it from time to time. So I think that's a very wonderful reading, a very wonderful reading for you. And if you're not in this place already, you've come in with this one. Obviously, this was the plan, and we come in needing to teach ourselves specific lessons. And so that is what this line is actually about. This is where you need to be currently working and putting yourself out there for others, and whatever kind of work you do. Like I said, you could possibly be a counselor, something very similar again to what you did in this past life that you've brought back in with you. But since it's so much more modern now, the look of it and the feel of it would be very different. You might be online, working with computers and, doing YouTube videos, or it could be teaching classes online, could be a lot of different things, but you are following a path that allows you to help other people. And this is where life ends up. which I think is a very beautiful, beautiful picture, as long as you stay on this trajectory. Okay, so for those of you who chose the puppy, this is your reading, and keep in mind that it is a general reading. What does not resonate for you, just forget about that part, and if nothing resonates with you, that's okay. It may be that another one of the readings is for you, and you might have been attracted to the mouse and thought you were attracted to the puppy, or the creature perhaps that you had an aversion to. Maybe you're allergic to cats. Or, maybe you really, really dislike mice, or you love birds. So you might have had a toss-up between some of these. So if this reading did not resonate with you, try watching another one of the animal that you, like I said, are either very much attracted to and you weren't sure which one to choose, the puppy or the other one, or choose one that you really have the aversion to, as I said. All right, that's it for your reading. I wish you all love and light. Take care. Hello to those of you who chose this adorable little mouse as your animal of choice. So we're going to start out by shuffling the past life cards, and then we will line 6 of them up along the back and begin working on your past life reading. It's kind of a thick deck here. It has 100 cards in it. So we are going to set them down and cut the deck. All right. So here we go. Let's start laying the cards up across the top. Okay. I feel as though, first impression wise, I feel like you were a very unique person, extremely unique. And because of your difference, I feel as though you felt like you needed to keep yourself hidden, but you very much enjoyed watching people I feel as though you may have had a handicap of some sort, or what others would term a handicap. Perhaps you were on crutches or had something definitely wrong with your physical body. Your mind was perfectly intact, but something wrong with your physical body. And I feel as though you felt like people were always watching you. Not straight on, but always kind of covertly, never looking directly at you. I think they were afraid to look at you. I don't think the affliction that you had was enough for them to really need to stare. But they did anyway, because people just tend to do that when someone isn't as they feel someone should be. But you had a very good mind, very good mind. You weren't, what do I want to say? You weren't hurt. You didn't take it that way. You, no matter how people looked at you, your spirits never dropped. you were always a very happy individual. You had a fantastic imagination, too. Absolutely fantastic imagination. And I do believe that you had communication with the fairies. I don't believe you spoke a whole lot, but I believe you had communication with the fairies and the elves and the dwarfs and even witches and warlocks and anyone in the magic realm. Because I think you yourself were probably quite magical, and obviously if you were able to communicate with those of nature. So in determining the time period that you lived, this isn't always easy to do. However, I feel as though it was a time when obviously people believed in fairies. I believe it was a time when the church was very much involved in what people should believe and very strict on that kind of thing. But I also believe that it was a time of magicians, and that the church took a back seat to those who practiced a different kind of belief. And as you can see, we have someone who looks almost shaman-like, or we're going to say perhaps similar to a witch doctor maybe. And we have a fairy here, and they're both flanking what could be considered the church, but could also be considered a magician. So time period wise, I'm going to say perhaps in a time period as like King Arthur. And of course, with all lives, there are struggles. And I feel as though one of the struggles that you had is that you felt like you had to hide yourself. So you would stay silent. You probably had a great deal to say, but you stayed silent. You wanted to shout to the world. You wanted to climb up the nearest tree and shout to the world what you knew. But instead, you stayed quiet. And, that is very much shown in both of these cards that show kind of a mime-like individual. This one and this one. Both with the very pale faces. And so you were very quiet, and even though you wanted to shout from the rooftops, you knew a lot. You knew so much. And because you were so quiet, you spent a lot of time listening and learning, and you knew that there was so much that you could teach. You learned from the fairies, you learned from the magicians, you learned from the shamans, but still you stayed quiet. Maybe you were unable to talk. I don't think that you were someone who couldn't hear or speak. I think you maybe just were unable to speak for some reason. But that's just a guess. It's very difficult to tell for sure. And then when you passed, you were very much revered by the elementals, the beings in nature. So revered by them. And they gave you such respect. Such respect. And your guides, your soul team, your spirit team. Even back then, there was such a thing. The angels, they all, again, gave you such respect. You, I feel, had a vibration that was so high despite whatever this was, whatever that kept you feeling as though, or kept you needing to hide, or perhaps other people felt you should hide. And you went back to the earth. You went, when you passed, you joined all these who loved you so much. They gave you an amazing send-off. Absolutely stunning. And the lessons that you learned from this life. I believe has to do with, it really doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, what station you hold. Everyone has the opportunity to befriend others. Everyone has the opportunity to offer something of value to others. Apparently, your actions, even if you were not able to speak, your actions is what allowed all these people to absolutely adore you. And perhaps you had extremely bright eyes and very expressive body movements, and you could just, they just loved that. They knew that you had amazing powers, amazing vibrational highness. So the lessons, that you learned from this lifetime, again, it didn't matter if you were poor or if someone was poor. It didn't matter if someone was a king. It didn't matter if someone was a child, alone. Each one of these individuals could touch and does touch many, many people around them. And it's the actions, the way that your behavior that actually determines what that does for others. That was a very valuable lesson for you. And sometimes, depending on these lives, sometimes we carry over things into the current life. And for this one, I'm seeing someone who absolutely loves the mystical, would like to maybe embrace the Wiccan way, the pagan way, would just really like to honor the people that honored you in this past life, to give them the honor that you feel as though they deserve. But there's something about you that keeps you looking over your shoulder. Something or someone that makes you feel as though honoring them or even following in their footsteps is not a good idea. And because perhaps that's the way that you began leaning in this lifetime, or have leaned in this lifetime, whoever is making you look over your shoulder is kind of throwing the church at you, trying to put you into some kind of religion, rather than allowing you to feel within yourself what is best. This could also be a carryover of what you remember feeling watching these individuals, the fairies, the magicians, the shamans, and the struggles that perhaps they had that you were not able to speak up for. And I feel as though you are in a very gray area right now. If you see how gray that card is, between the two of going, which way would be the best way? What does your heart really dictate? And again, this time period, there was a lot of belief in the magic, a great deal of belief in the magic. And those are the people that honored you the most, are those. The ones who made you feel, though you did not allow it, the ones who wouldn't look at you or because you were different. Those are the ones that you feel may be depicted by this person. But this person could also be a mentor that is helping you get past this looking over your shoulder, this carryover that you had, as though what you are considering at this time in this current life is a no-no. That you should not be honoring these individuals, but it is ingrained in you to do so. So now we're going to get a quick message from the We Folk Toracles cards to see if there's any added message here from this past life. Another being that might have something to share. Okay, so we have, she's quite dark, but you can see her hat and her head. This is Ursula, and her subject matter is the underbelly. We all have a soft underbelly, a place within us that is vulnerable to others. We try our best to protect this place, but we somehow give this secret away. Inevitably, it seems to get used against us. You do not need to have this soft, vulnerable underbelly. You can work with yourself to discover the root cause of this soft spot. Come to terms with it and let it go. You would be amazed at how quickly the soft underbelly heals. You are not a victim unless you choose to be. And I think this card, Ursula, is over here with the carryover situation that you have. You don't have to feel like a victim. You don't have to allow someone else to make that decision for you. This is, whatever this is for you to choose. It is your life. It is for you to choose. And as long as it does not harm anyone else in any way, you should be free to choose. So now we're going to look at some regular playing cards. And the first thing that we're going to check out is what plan that you came into this current life with from Spirit. I'm going to take a quick look and see what they're sharing with us about that. Cut the cards. All right, so we have the Two of Hearts, we have the Seven of Clubs, and we have the Eight of Hearts. So the plan for this life, this lifetime, was to enjoy life, and to enjoy life with someone, and to be able to work with signs and synchronicities and chance, and even perhaps getting into some form of witchcraft or excuse me, some form of witchcraft or whatever it is. It was working with the universe not against the universe. And this person that you wished to be with also brought out your creativity, and whether this be in art or music or literature, perhaps you began writing, perhaps you are an artist or a sculptor, and the other person is as well. This is the exchange. You give one another, you're like one another's muse. And you both pay attention to the random things that happen. And it might have even been a chance encounter that brought you together. But your thoughts are always happy thoughts. You're very much like you were back in this past life. You were a very happy individual. And again, this is how you came in wishing for life to be this time around. This is the plan. And you have not lost that high vibration. You did not want to lose that high vibration. So this was the plan. So let's see where you stand right now. This is the current time. Okay, so we have the Two of Clubs, the Queen of Spades, and the Ten of Diamonds. You're working with somebody right now, but I feel like it's what you're working at seems to be a very repetitive thing. Not necessarily, I mean, this is your work. It might be very, repetitive, a cycle that you keep going through. And, you're not necessarily overly happy about that. And you may be quite depressed or lonely at the current time. However, we also see here, if you can see, we have a witch here. You might very well be a practicing witch and solitary. So you might not be lonely, just solitary, and working with the moon and the cycles of life. And this is showing that by doing so, whatever it is that you're doing, you're doing just fine. You are making good money, and you feel successful. Now, this could be that the money is not coming in as yet, but you feel successful, or you have an idea, a thought, something that's saying to you, this is the way to go. This is the way to this. You may be there already. You may already be in this position, but if not, this is what you're working towards, or what you should be working towards at this current time. So let's see if you are not at this point yet. Let's see how to get there. Okay, so we have the Five of Clubs, we have the King of Diamonds, and we have the Joker. The Five of Clubs is saying you need to keep yourself physically fit. This is important. Keep yourself physically fit, and that might mean working a lot. Perhaps you're doing, if you're working, as this is showing, if you're, you are a witch and you are working, say, on YouTube or Rumble or something like that. Videos take a lot of time and a lot of work. So anyway, you're supposed to keep your nose to the grindstone, but also, stay physically fit at the same time. And here we have the King of Diamonds, and the King of Diamonds is usually depicted as a very wealthy man. someone who has absolutely no money troubles whatsoever and carries a lot of clout. So he is in the picture somewhere, but the Joker tells us that this is something that you're going to have to wait and see. Keeping your eyes open and your mind clear and allowing the information to come to you, whether it be in dreams. And again, as you see up here, this was the card that was working as chance and random happenings, and so this was a part of your plan. So you need to be open to that, which is maybe also why they're not sharing with you in full what you need to do to get to this point. You need to trust, that's obvious. You need to believe in those random happenings. Is this the person that you're going to spend your life with? It's hard to say. He would obviously have the means to, help you with, or be your muse. And, you would have the means to also help him with whatever it is that you're currently doing. But that does not mean that this person is the person that this person is, the one that you are, that has the vibration of love, that you can just feel that. And, what we see here is work and money. We don't see a heart, but it doesn't mean it's not there. They're just not giving that information to you at this time. So there you have it. There is your reading, my mouse people. And if the reading resonates with you, that's wonderful. Whatever doesn't in the reading, just let it go and take what does resonate for you. And perhaps if you had a little bit of a hard time choosing one of the animals, consider going and taking a look at the reading for the other one that maybe you wanted to choose, but then kind of lean toward the mouse instead. And you might even look at one that, something that maybe you have an aversion to. If you don't like dogs, maybe you should watch that video. If you don't like cats, or you're allergic to cats or dogs, maybe you should watch that video. Something may be there for you to see that is important. All right, so that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much, and I'm sending you much love and light. Hello, my cat people. And here is the cat that you chose. Beautiful, isn't she? I will set her there. Wouldn't be surprised if she falls over, but I will set her there. So we are going to shuffle up the cards for the past life reading. There's 100 of them here, so there's plenty to work with. And we're going to line up the first 6 across the base here and move on from there with your past life reading. All right, so we're going to split this deck and set up the cards over here. Sorry about the rearranging here, but I want to make sure that you're able to see all the ones that need to lie down by these. Okay, so first impression here, we see a man on a horse. Can't see much of the horse, but he's a traveler. I feel like you may have been a traveler, but let's take a closer look here. Okay, so we have the traveler, and we have someone who is sitting and out in nature and starting a fire, perhaps. And then we have someone who looks as though they are praying, someone in almost like a religious outfit. So I wonder, I'm thinking here that you might have been a traveling preacher, someone who carried the word to outlying locations, people who couldn't get to a church or who lived a good distance away and or were sickly, who could not come. So you would travel to them, and you spent a great deal of time out in nature, always traveling, and never really, I don't believe you ever actually had a physical home that you called basically God or Source's world your own. This is where you felt the most comfortable, and this is where you did the work that came from your heart. Now, if we're trying to determine the timeline here for this traveling, this is kind of hard to do with the cards because many of the beings that these cards depict are in older clothing, medieval clothing. But I feel as though this was a time where children often were seen and not heard. The old saying, children are seen and not heard. We have, a child who is kind of hiding, but eavesdropping perhaps. We have another child here who appears to be very intelligent, but maybe is not allowed to go to, say, a public school. And we have someone here that seems to be dressed in some kind of skin. And I'm dating myself with this, but if you've ever heard of Daniel Boone, he was or Grizzly Adams, somebody who lives in the wild, somebody who hunts for their food. And I do believe this was back in those days. So this could be pioneer time, maybe, where people lived out on the plains and had to survive, build their own cabins, and their children were not able to get to school. There were no buses. There were wagons, but maybe no towns close by. Thus, the need to have a traveling preacher. And there were always obviously challenges, and there is in any life. And the challenges for you as a preacher, I believe, came from, I believe you may have had a very strict doctrine about other cultures. And so here we have someone that perhaps a Romanian traveler, someone who danced and dressed in flashy clothes and traveled in caravans and just very happy spiritual people, but not your type of spiritual. And I feel as though you had no tolerance for those who might consider a life of mystical areas, such as herbalism or witchcraft or anything that wasn't of the norm. You were very much drawn to those people who, and again, she almost looks as though she is a pioneer woman. But the only ones it looks like that you would actually preach to were the ones who you felt were worthy of being preached to. That was your challenge. I feel as though how you passed had to do with, I feel as though perhaps you were framed. I can't tell you how you were put to death, but I feel that someone was trying to educate you about being so certain that other people, such as those who chose to travel in caravans, or those who chose to work with herbs, and those who worked with elementals, and anybody who didn't have just a direct line to God or source as you felt you had, which is, I mean, that's what your heart felt. You weren't doing anything wrong. However, your heart was not open to preaching to all. So this person, I feel, wanted to educate you. And when you shrugged that person off or you pushed them away, I feel as though they set you up and made it look as though maybe you had done something wrong with a young woman, and somehow that got back to the church and they told you you could no longer preach. You were no longer a part of the church. And so you may very well have taken your own life, although I doubt it because of, your belief system. But someone in the church, because they knew that you would not desist, I feel as though someone was hired to get rid of you. Very sad end, but you were very strong in your beliefs, and that was the way things were done back then. So we all learn lessons specifically in these lifetimes that we have. And this lifetime, you learned, I think, that there's nothing wrong with being of a different mindset. And she looks as though she might be someone who people go to for ailments. This would be another one, somewhat like a shaman, that people might go to for whatever they do for individuals, and that these people should never have to look over their shoulders because they're really not doing anything wrong. Like you in this past life, you were following your heart. They also were following their heart, and there really is no gray area to following the heart as long as what you're doing is aiding other people, not harming. So that was a lesson that you needed to learn from this lifetime. What you may have carried over into your current life now, I feel as though a carryover for you is one where you feel like you have no right to say anything about anyone, whether right or wrong. I feel as though another part of you is struggling with those people who do feel as though they have the right to tell someone what they can and cannot do. And then I feel you also are an advocate for children, those who you feel cannot speak up for themselves, but yet you're still having the struggle here of whether you should open your mouth or you shouldn't open your mouth about these things. Should you stand up to other people for someone else? I feel as though that might be a carryover into your current life, because you did speak up very loudly against certain individuals in this past life, and now with the lesson that you have learned, you've come into this life a little more closed mouthed than perhaps you'd like to be. So let us grab the We Folk Toracles cards here and see if there is another message for you from the fairies. Okay, we have Esmeralda here. If you can see her, she looks to be in a judge's outfit or a professor's outfit. Her name is Esmeralda, and her subject matter is the journal. Writing, keeping record of events that take place in your life, is an incredible therapeutic tool. These written memories allow you to look back at what you have accomplished, identify lessons learned, and if your eyes are open, you will be able to record signs and symbols you receive as the universe and your guides work with you on your life's path. The written record you create can give you insight you may miss if you do not stop to record these letters to yourself. Take the time and start your journal. So I feel like she's saying here that because your carryover is perhaps this fear, and usually carryovers are fears of some sort, that you might be afraid to open your mouth. Maybe putting things down into a journal will begin opening you up to realizing that you maybe do have something to say, and that maybe you don't have anything to be afraid of. Maybe you're afraid that you won't word things properly and people will get upset with you for speaking out. But you never know. The journal may help you open up in that way, and you may read something and think, oh, well, it also may be a way to maybe start a blog or something along those lines that you are able to share, but behind the scenes. Nobody really needs to know who you are. But again, as in this past lifetime, what you have to share here is not a way to berate other people. It is a way to open the eyes and the minds and the hearts of everyone for an acceptance, something that you had to learn for people who are different than you were. So now we're going to take a look at some regular playing cards and see what the plan was, what your spiritual plan was when you came into this life, what you wanted to accomplish in this current lifetime. Let's see what your spirit had to say about that. Okay, so we have the Two of Hearts, we have the Two of Spades, and we have the Four of Hearts. So it looks like here that you wanted to have something stable. You wanted to have a lifetime that involved some kind of romance, some kind of creative life that you shared with someone else. But the exchanges not always being perfect. You wanted a little bit of conflict. You wanted to be able to have them speak their mind and you speak your mind, but still loving one another, still coming back to a place of love and stability without judgment, without changing anything in your relationship. This is what your spirit wanted for this lifetime. So let's see where you are currently with this. We have the Three of Clubs, we have the Three of Diamonds, and we have the Two of Diamonds. So it looks like you're working in the right direction for success in what you wished to accomplish here. It's happening bit by bit, okay? You might be doing part-time things. You might be, everything is growing just slower than I think you expect it to. And, that includes money. The growth is not as big as what you would like it to be. And you may be wanting to find, or may have found, someone who has money, or maybe you're hoping for a gift of money. But it isn't all about money. It literally is, the work that you're doing is, or should be doing, I should say, the work that you should be doing is spiritual. And you might only be able to do it part-time right now, but even a little bit of money to start with, whatever it is that you're doing that's spiritual. And again, we're going back to this. This is spiritual work that you were doing, but now that you've expanded in your thinking from this life and you understand that differences are very much okay. People are going to be different. They need to be different. This is what makes the world tick. The spiritual work that you're doing now is not myopic. You can see much further. So spiritual work is important, and it takes time. And the longer that you work at it, the more money that you will make, and it will be an even exchange of energy. The money that you do receive is an even exchange of energy. And that could be, as I was talking here, perhaps you're doing a blog or a vlog that people are very much enjoying and are donating, and wherever that goes. So that is where I see that you are currently, or if you're not, that is where you should work towards to begin reaching what your spirit came in to do. So then, if you're not quite there, how do you get there? How can you get to here? So we have the Seven of Clubs, we have the Eight of Clubs, and we have the Three of Spades. So here we're seeing a work issue. Okay, this is a lot of work going on, and you are working hard. You really are working hard, but you're not paying attention to the signs and the synchronicities and the things that your spirit team is sharing with you. You're not quieting your mind enough to hear what you're being, I'm going to say, advised to do, perhaps. You have all your own thoughts. You are thinking so hard about the things that you feel like you need to do to become successful, or, to make a lot of money and things like that. And what's happening is that there's a lot of aggravations being thrown in front of you. I'm going to call them third-party interference from those who are trying to reach you, your spirit team. They're trying to reach you so that they can help guide you from this to this. But you have to allow them to help you with the work, to help you. And, if you're having some things going on currently, or you notice this in the future, that things are just little aggravations are driving you absolutely crazy, and you just feel like nothing adds up, nothing's working the way you want it to. It's like having a mosquito buzz in your ear, but that mosquito buzzing in your ear is your spirit team saying, hey, get out of your head, we're here to help, let us help. So you have people on your side, even if they're unseen people. You have people on your side, and they are looking to help you through, help you reach your spiritual goal. So that's what we have, cat people. Take what resonates with you and just let go of what doesn't. And if another animal perhaps resonated, you couldn't make up your mind as to whether you wanted a dog or a cat, or maybe one of these like the mouse, or maybe one of them you really have an aversion to. Those are messages you should probably listen to, or past lives you should probably check out, because it could be another past life speaking out to you that you need to know in this current life as well. So I thank you for viewing, and I'm wishing you love and light. Take care. Okay, hello my bird people. And here's the little bird that you chose, sitting in a nest. We'll place it right here. And now we're going to shuffle the cards. I'll be putting 6 of them across to get us started in front of these boxes here. This is a pretty thick deck. There's 100 cards here, so there's a lot to choose from with the past lives. Quite the stories to come forth. So now we will split the deck. And here we go. Okay. Now, first impressions here. I feel as though you may have been an orphan, or someone who was extremely poor, possibly even sickly, but we're not sure on that one yet. So let us see here. Okay. What I think I'm seeing here is that you were an orphan. Your parents passed away somehow, and you were left to fend for yourself. However, you met some amazing people, woodland people, I'm going to say. A young girl being one of them, about your age at the time. And you also met some elves and some fairies, and the elf especially, it looks like, really had a difficult time with your story, what happened to you. And we have a fairy here giving a tissue to this elf as he's listening to you share the story. But they became very fast friends with you. Very fast friends. You were young enough that you had nothing stopping you from believing in elves and fairies and nature folk. So, and the girl obviously she had no problem with the belief either. She looks as though she comes from this kind of life. She may very well be one of the beings. So they helped you survive, is what I'm thinking. And the time period here might be a little tough to determine with this kind of lifetime. And it's sometimes difficult with the cards because many of the beings are in kind of medieval type clothing or very different clothing, we'll say. So I feel as though this was a time when there were many children on their own, many children who were left without parents. We have a young one here that, he's hiding. And we have another young one here that is also hiding and dressed a little less fancy than this one right here. And then we have another that is seeming to hide, a little bit older perhaps than these two, but seeming to hide in the crook of a tree. So I feel as though it was a time that there were many orphans, perhaps due to war. I believe there's something called the orphan train. I don't know a lot about that. I do know that many children, I believe it was World War II, where many children were sent off on trains to live with other families because nothing happened to their own parents, but they were in the danger zone of being bombed. So they would remove the children and send them off to live with other people. But I don't feel like that's what this is. I feel like this is, perhaps it was a war, but I don't feel like the children were shipped off. I feel as though they just survived and their parents did not. They were not sent elsewhere. And there are a lot of struggles with lives and challenges. And obviously, being orphaned is a struggle, but there's more than that. And I feel like part of the struggle may have been other people believing that you were better off with them, when in fact they perhaps needed you to help work the land or wanted to use you in the war, wanted to make you do things they didn't want to do because they might be harmed, but it was okay to send you to do so. And then there were those who put all of their effort into keeping you safe, keeping you safe from these, but sometimes that just wasn't enough. And these were challenges. You were always having to be hidden or to hide from these people, because if they caught you, they would either put you to work or you would end up being put to death somehow, because they would want you to do something that would cause your death. And of course, as in any life, death does come. So in this lifetime, I feel as though eventually, and I can't really tell you when you got older, okay, you surrendered to, I'm assuming, one of these people. And at that point, you were educated. They thought it was very important for you to become educated. But there were those who did not agree, did not think that an orphan child should be educated or put into the position perhaps that you were finally given or allowed to be put into. Maybe you became a teacher or a professor or something along those lines, but there were those who did not think that that's the way it should be. And I believe you were taken out, and I almost believe that they electrocuted you. This is kind of an electric guy here. So I'm feeling as though they electrocuted you somehow. I don't know. I mean, in this time period, was there electricity? Was there a way to electrocute someone? I don't know. I would assume there would have been radios and water. And so there had to have been electricity. I'm thinking that there was electricity, because if it was during war, that kind of helps too with the time factor. A war of some sort, but I feel that there were radios. A way to electrocute someone. So enough electricity, but it might not be, well, it isn't as strong of electricity as what we currently have, what we now live with. So I feel like you were electrocuted. And every life has lessons to teach us. So this is about the lesson that you learned from this lifetime, at least one of them. And let us see what that could be. I believe what I'm seeing here is that you understand that people have burdens, a lot of burdens, and that sometimes it's very difficult for them to see, or they refuse to see, the burdens that other people carry. And as we can see, this one has, a huge burden on her head. Here's her head almost with her nose almost to the ground. And this one has a lot to carry. But there are those who refuse to see the burdens that other people carry. And I feel as though when you surrendered, you did it because there was somebody that you needed to save. Someone that you did not want to get caught, or you were doing it for someone else. Once you had surrendered, you began realizing that not all the people that had been trying to get to you were bad. This person thought, giving you an education was important, and they gave you that education, and they gave you a way to make a living. You didn't have time to go and help anyone else because your death came first. But the lesson that you learned was people have burdens, and you never really know what another person is carrying, or perhaps the reason that they are doing what they are doing. It could be nefarious. It may not be nefarious. It could be a sadness. But you realize that people just oftentimes aren't willing to look, and maybe that is something that you needed or need to look at. So now we're going to look at what you may be carried in with you to this current life from this past life. And a lot of times what you carry in is a fear. Not always, but sometimes. I feel like there's a part of you that is always afraid of the poison apple. And that you feel as though you really have to research every little thing. You really have to know every little thing that you possibly can about people to feel even remotely safe. It's almost as though even when you know everything that you can possibly know, you're still waiting for the other shoe to drop, and you're still waiting for the bad to come out of these people. It's a carryover from, even though you knew, or even though you had an experience like this, where you were educated, brought in by someone kind, educated, you lived more of your life in the fear mode, in the hiding mode, than you did in this comfortable mode. And then, of course, we had someone who was like these, where they had their own reasons, their own way, and chose to extinguish your life for their own reasons. And I feel like that has kind of been carried over, that you're just a little bit afraid of the things that other people might do to you. And again, we all have fears that we come in with. We all have scenarios. We've lived many different lifetimes. So there's many fears that we might carry in with us. So we're going to find out if the fairies have any other message for us before we move on to using the playing cards for a bit more information. So we are going to split the deck and see. All right. So we have this little one here, which I have determined is a spider of some sort with very buggy eyes. Picture's quite dark, but this little one's name is BB, and the subject matter is the puzzle. Every human is similar to a puzzle in that you are each made up of many different puzzle pieces. Each piece represents a different aspect of who you are, and the puzzle must be put together to view the whole. Sometimes pieces do not seem to fit as you feel they should, and this makes you confused about who you really are. To bring back clarity, you must examine the misfit pieces to determine if they are really yours or if they represent what someone else believes you should be. Being your true self completes your puzzle as the misfit pieces are gone. So I think BB's trying to say that some of what we go through in our lifetime, our current lifetime, comes from other people's beliefs. But they also come from, these things also come from past lives. And that in determining, for instance, this particular fear, in determining that this comes from your past life, a life that you lived, passed on, but you're still surviving, obviously, your soul is still here, that these fears aren't really yours, that you can let them go now. That was that lifetime. And I think that's kind of what you just need to figure out, what puzzle pieces are yours in this lifetime. So now we're going to take a look with the playing cards and see, after you passed from this lifetime, if in fact this is the most recent one, which is what that was our intention to this current life, to see what your spirit, what plan your spirit had for this lifetime. So let's take a look. Okay. I'm just going to hang on to them for right now. Okay, so I've had the Two of Hearts for 3 of the readings here. Okay, so I'm seeing life starting out as a bit of a struggle, as it did here, but perhaps not in the same kind of way. Maybe there was something in your childhood that made you afraid that you were going to lose your parents at some point in time. Or that something, just innately, something inside of you was saying, something horrible is going to happen. I just know it. I just know it. But then eventually, things worked out. You get a job, you have specific goals, you have a job, you're kind of bored with your job, but you get a job, and there might be a little bit of this still there. But then suddenly, somewhere along the lines of this lifetime, the plan that your spirit had for you was to meet somebody who changes everything, who can help you remove those fears, and who helps you become the creative individual that you are meant to be, and you do the same for them. So it's a beautiful lifetime. You have to get past, or your spirit allowed you to come in with some of this, because it's things that you need to work out, things you need to change. So where are you currently in your life? Let's take a look. Okay, so we have the 9 of clubs, we have the Joker, and we have the 3 of clubs. So it looks like here that there's a lot of changes going on, a lot of work changes happening. Maybe you can't quite find your place, not sure what it is that you really want to do. So maybe you're going from job to job, or maybe you're considering changing jobs. And the Joker here is the mystery card. It is spirit or your soul saying this part of things is a secret. But it can also be to let you know that maybe to have things change where the work situation is concerned is to sit silent for a while and allow your spirit team to give you some guidance. Or maybe it's telling you that you should perhaps get a reading from someone, a personal reading from someone that will give you some idea with a question of, where should I go? What should I be doing? And I hate to use the word soul purpose, but, what does your soul wish you to do? That kind of a question, so that you can have some guidance and, allow some growth to come through. Not just go from job to job, but, finally start having some kind of growth. And I feel as though this growth or the work that you're meant to be doing is of a spiritual nature. I don't feel like that's necessarily what you're doing, or if you've started that, I don't feel like you're doing it in full. But it also could be that you were in this position where you were doing a lot of different things, and you finally found your calling, and things are growing for you in that way. But you're still needing to, supplement your work here. So how do you get to this 2 of Hearts? What is it that you need to do to get to the 2 of Hearts? So we've got the 8 of Hearts, the 3 of Hearts, and the 8 of Diamonds. So there's a lot of thoughts going on here. Thoughts about celebrating, and everything is about celebrating, having a good time, balloons and cakes and dancing and socializing and celebrating with friends, going out and having a good time. And growth, having growth of some sort. And I think it's more growth of, say, a tribe, your group. It's small. The bonds are growing. And there's thoughts about money, having enough money maybe to continue growing in this way. This is an amazing vibration right here. A lot of love being shared. I'm not seeing any work in this. I'm not seeing anything bad happening in here. There's no spades to say that there's anything bad. Sometimes the missing cards are important, and since here we have thoughts, there's a lot of thoughts going on about what you would like to have happen. And it's not really happening fast enough for you. You need to continue putting in the work, obviously, but what you're hoping for is not to have to work as hard and be able to just have a good time. And the money will come in and things will grow no matter what. And it's a great mindset to have. It is a way to put the right vibration out there to the universe. Say, this is what I want. You don't want to stop working what you're currently doing, because if this is the path you are following right now, if you have found your calling, so to speak, and it's not growing, but you are, or it is growing, but you are doing a lot of work, and you still have to do a part-time job or your regular job, whatever the case is, keep doing it. And then put out there to the universe the thoughts that you want and exactly what you want. Write it down. Put it out there and say, this is what I want. Write it down, everything that you can think of that you would like to have, and look it over. When you're done and you feel like you're satisfied with what's on that paper, take it outside in someplace safe and burn it. Make sure you don't burn anything down. Make sure it's safe. That includes if you want to meet this person, because inevitably, I think you might be destined, because it is Spirit's plan, your spirit or soul's plan, you might be destined to meet that person, but you might meet them sooner if this all goes according to plan. Maybe. Okay, I think that is probably it for this past life reading and this current portion. If for some reason you were drawn to another animal and you just kind of were bouncing back and forth between the bird and maybe another one, you might want to watch that past life as well. Or if you had an absolute aversion to one of these animals, you might want to watch that. Say you really are afraid of mice for some reason, you might want to watch that one. Okay, that's what I have here. I'm wishing you all love and light. Take care.